Okay, here we are on Napoleon Total War Online right now. Um, let's see, I brought Prussia and my opponent brought Britain. So one of my favorite things about, Napoleon Total War was that every faction plays much differently. Unlike an empire, most nations just, they're the same kind of accuracy reload. There's nothing really special except for the occasional units like, winged hussars and, certain unique units to the faction. But pretty much every single unit in Napoleon Total War is unique to that faction. Like, people might say, oh, line infantry is still the same. But no, not really. These Prussian musketeers have 45 accuracy and 50 reload, while the British musketeers, or foot, have 50 accuracy and 60 reload. So they will beat my line infantry every single day of the week. However, my Prussian lights will be very powerful in this match. These Prussian lights are the best light infantry in the game, so they will dominate all other types of light infantry. So, it's about clan specialization when you play this game, and that's what makes Napoleon so exciting over Empire, because all the factions play so much differently. If you're going to play different factions, if you play Russia, you're not going to spam lights or line because they both suck. But you'll bring a lot of cav and guards, of course. Same thing with France. Their line infantry isn't all that impressive. However, their cavalry and their guards are outstanding. So that's just what I liked about Napoleon Online. What do you like, Duke?
Well, with Napoleon, this unit diversity you talked about is good in a way. People with very sort of specialised playing style, they can be quite difficult to deal with certain nations. Like, I usually rely heavily on the light infantry, and then that makes playing with Russia extremely difficult for me.
Yeah, that's probably true. Because, Russia has terrible lights, like I mentioned before. And once again, like we mentioned in Empire, you can just spread out your lines as much as you want. Like this isn't really a realistic formation right here, what I'm showing you, this little close-up. That is not a realistic formation. Usually in the actual Napoleonic era, they spread out they did not spread out their units all that much. Am I correct? I don't really know that much.
Yes, units would generally be a little more compact, especially if they're advancing or something like that.
Yeah, probably to keep order and discipline and stuff. I'd probably bet. So yeah, I think Duke brought artillery. One thing that a lot of people have complained about in this game is that the artillery is completely overpowering. Not as overpowering as Empire, actually, because they don't have those, like a shrapnel shot, but they can still be quite annoying to fight, just because, if you stand away, then you get shot up. But if you don't, if you don't stand back, then, if you actually just try to charge them, then you get pretty much eaten up by those, canister shots. So that's pretty annoying, but it's not as overpowering as Empire. That's what I liked. Let's go ahead and start up. This isn't a real match, so if I beat Duke or if Duke beats me, don't say, aha, that person won, because this really isn't a real match. So I guess I'm going to get ready up. So like I also mentioned in Empire, the campaign really isn't all that great, I thought. It was a great campaign. One thing that I really did like is that you got to choose what you did with the regions. Like in every Total War game except Empire Total War, you got to choose what you did with the regions after you captured them. Like sometimes when you're really in financial debt, you could really need to, loot a province. While in Empire you really didn't have that option. But Napoleon brought it back, so I was much more thrilled about that. Looks like he brought those 5-inch howitzers. We'll get to see them in action later. I'm sure they'll just waste my infantry. Sometimes they fire too high above their heads, but if a shot kind of gets down into the infantry unit, then they're screwed pretty much. Now I know that this title is called The Best and Worst of Total War, so if there's something called, one of the things that are worse about these games is that the AI is quite terrible. I actually find it quite impressive in Shogun 2, but I'll talk about that later. In Empire and Napoleon, it's not so great. I am not a fan of the Creative Assembly AI in shooting games, at least. Makes campaign a little bit more dull because you just waste you can just waste the AI really easily. Isn't that right?
Yes, campaign can get quite boring, especially because the AI likes to split up its armies into small little one-unit armies, and they just run around and destroy all the buildings.
Oh yeah, that's true. The campaign AI was quite annoying as well. I thought. I mean, yeah, both. I think both campaign and battle AI could use some improvements in Rome too. I hope since it is a melee game, I think it'll be quite better. Kind of than the shooting games. Like I said, I guess shooting games just really doesn't work for the Total War kind of franchise. I mean, not online. Online shooting games are really good because players know what to do. Real players. But most most players are kind of bad at it too. But at least online, people know what they're doing a little bit more. And so as you can see, I'm just spreading out my lines like super big, but Duke's actually being pretty conservative about his line, as you can see. I think you can see one of his howitzer fire. Those howitzers are just devastating. Let's see another volley when they come up. So you're in a campaign right now, Duke, right?
Yes. The campaigns could be quite interesting. I think the Peninsula one.
Oh, you're doing the Peninsula? Yeah, it was a pretty good campaign for an expansion, I thought. Not as good as Medieval 2 Kingdoms, but I think it was the next best expansion. Was not a bad campaign, actually. Alright, so let's talk a little bit about Napoleon Total War single player, just the campaign kind of aspect. Most Total War gamers, they actually play more single player than they do multiplayer. Like 90% never even touch online. So I think it's fair to say that most people will be more interested about the single player gameplay. So like we mentioned before, the AI is quite unimpressive. It's not all that great, really. I mean, like I said, it's quite pathetic how bad the AI is, and just all of its kind of little quirks. Like the kind of reforming. I should probably show you that, but the reforming is just hilarious. Like they just completely screw up their whole army. If you attack during that kind of stage, then you're kind of screwed. Yeah, there we can see the overpoweringness of those artillery pieces. They just completely wasted, well, I think that was a little bit of cav, but the artillery also wasted a lot of my light infantry there. And my light infantry are my greatest asset, so I think I should be careful about wasting them. Let's send in some cavalry. I completely had my cavalry force at the back. Do you use artillery much on single player?
I do occasionally, but it's quite difficult to attack and use artillery at the same time, considering how slow it moves.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, most of the time when I find myself using artillery, I just kind of art camp. I'll admit it, I'm kind of an arty noob, in single player at least. I just kind of camp and let the AI come to me. I know that's what most players do, so I'm just going to go ahead and admit it.
Actually, one thing you should mention, the graphics on Napoleon, you can have a beautiful remark, exceptional.
Oh yeah, I was going to mention that before. I was thinking about that when I was loading up. It's that the graphics on this game are just amazing. Most people are saying how great the Shogun graphics are, but I actually prefer Napoleon graphics to Shogun graphics every day of the week. I used that term before, didn't I? But yeah, I really love the Napoleon graphics. I think it's much better than Shogun graphics, actually, even though Shogun is the latest game. I liked it much better, just because, well, just look at it. I mean, we'll see Shogun 2 next, but, yeah, we'll see just how good it is. Just keep in mind, look at these graphics, and then look at Shogun 2's next. One thing I liked is that all their faces look different. I mean, in Shogun 2, I mean, definitely in Empire, and in Shogun 2 as well, I mean, all their faces don't look all that much different. While in Napoleon, it just kind of gets that human feel, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, you could argue that during this time period there's more to capture, I suppose, in the graphics, there's explosion from artillery and musket fire and that kind of thing.
Oh, that's probably true also. Okay, so this battle's pretty much done. Let's move on to Shogun 2 Total War. Regular Shogun 2, not Fall of the Samurai, by the way. So we'll see you there.